Hey guys, we're back. This time we're taking a look at another fan-made faction for Star Trek Ascendancy. This time around it is the Bajoran Republic, and this is kind of an early build of this. I'm not sure if it's the final, so some things are subject to change. You'll also notice that some of my things are either odd-sized or like these, poorly printed and cut because they're not finalized yet, but I really enjoyed playing this one and I wanted to share it. Anyway, we'll get right in and take a look. Now, first thing of note, the Bajor home system is actual Bajor, which is available in the Cardassian expansion. So if you don't want to make your own system tile, you can use the one from that expansion. I made my own to keep with the faction as a starter, and then if Bajor comes up during play, we just discard it because it's already there. It just saves me having to sort through the deck and find it and remove it every time we play. So again, we have cool models from Frank, who designed. They didn't want to use the generic Bajoran fighters because everybody else has larger ships. So I went with these cruiser style ships here. I can't remember the actual name of the class. There's also the Cheese Wedge of Doom ship, which I'll show here. And I'm thinking about making those and upscaling them to use as the fleet ships, because the fleet ships are identical to the regular ones right now. But aside from that, I love the models. These control nodes he made are actually comparable to the official ones right out of the game. I think they're nicer than some of the official ones, so really like those. They came out awesome. And for the stations, we got a real early design of the Cardassian style station in like a triangle, and I think it fits really well with their theme. We also got these little resistance fighter tokens, which is a guy and a girl back to back with pistols in hand, and unfortunately they do not print very well on a FDM printer. It kind of stretches their limitations. I think they look fine in resin if you're going to do it. Or Frank has also designed a much easier fist icon that probably will work better. The original guy who designed the faction, I think, wanted them to be just a plain token. So that works too. But I like my 3D models. I am going to look into printing the fists though. And then we have our control panel here. Again, the size is all out of whack, which is why these sliders look huge. And looking in on here, I don't know if I got the newest version of this. So I'm going to show this here, and if it changes, that's because there's a newer version of this. And again, this is a prototype, so it's got nasty wrinkles in here. It needs to be redone, but here we have Earthbound. You need one more Ascendancy to commission a starbase. Starbases you control don't add hit dice in space battles. And then our other one here is the Liberators. You take one culture when you successfully invade or hegemony a system with a resistance token or a culture node. I think it should be hegemonize, not hegemony, but I think they're just trying to use the game term better. But anyway, it gives you extra culture for taking over systems that have your resistance fighters in them. You're basically taking back systems. And the fact that you get bonus for culture as well. This whole faction is based around generating culture at a ridiculous amount. And one of the things that really makes them stand out different than other factions is that you actually don't get Ascendancy with them. Instead, you get orbs, which is a whole new deck over here. And the way these work is anytime you would basically get a Ascendancy token, so if you start with one, you're going to start with one of these in play, and you don't get anything from it other than the fact that they represent your Ascendancy. Later on in the game, as opposed to trading in 5 culture to gain an Ascendancy, you can trade in the amount listed at the top here to open one of the orbs. Once it's open, you gain this bonus immediately, and then from then on it's used to just represent a Ascendancy. The catch is, where everybody else can get a Ascendancy token for 5, some of these cost 6, 8, I think there's even one in here that's a 9. So the majority of them cost more. I think there's only 2, there's 1 4, which is nice, but everything else and the bonus you get from it is not that great. Yeah, in fact you have to exhaust 2 commands. But the rest of them give, the ones that cost more give better and cooler bonuses. So it's up to you which one you pick and choose to open based on the state of the game. It's a very interesting concept, and I like the way it works with the Bajorans thematically. For our starting advancement, we have rival. When a rival takes control of one of your systems, you mark it with a resistance token. During your turn, you can use a command to destroy a resource node or ship in a system marked with a resistance token. Like I said, this is still a work in progress. That seems a little strong to me. It should maybe be a 1 use and then you also lose the token, but I'm still messing around with that, and the guy who's designing is still testing things. But again, I just wanted to share this faction early. It is super powerful, though. The effect to be able to destroy a node or a ship at the cost of a command. Onto our trade agreements. You have a 1 production trade agreement, nothing special there. Everybody has one of those. You have a 1 research trade agreement, which a couple factions now have something similar to that, but it's kind of nice. And you have a culture trade agreement, which is what everybody seeks after from the Bajorans. The idea is you got to be really careful who you're giving this to, because 1 additional culture a turn can really speed up the game. Doesn't seem like much, but it can. And it can give somebody a pretty sizable advantage. Granted, the way that the Bajorans work, you're going to be pulling in a lot too, but be wary of who you give that to. On to our fleets. First one here we have is the missionary fleet. It's 4 ships, and it adds 1 to your hegemony attempts in a system with this fleet. If you succeed, you get to refresh a command. So that's pretty cool. I like the way that one works. On the flip side of that, we have the Chosen Children. Ignore 1 hit against this fleet in the first battle, round of battle or an invasion. It's a 6-ship fleet. And pretty nice effect there. Pretty thematic too. Number 2 here, we have a 3-ship fleet for upheaval. When this fleet occupies a developed system you don't control, you can use a command to mark it with a resistance token. Can't be used on a home system. It's another way to get the resistance tokens out there. This is a small fleet though, pretty fragile. And again, we have another chosen fleet. I think all the generic fleets are the Chosen Children. Same thing, 6 ships, and you ignore the first hit against it in the first round of an invasion or battle. Number 3, we have the Rescue Fleet. I'm not sure if that was spelled that way on purpose, but it's a 6-ship fleet. +1 weapons when in battle and invasions. If their system you're invading is marked with a resistance token. On the flip side, the Chosen Children 6-ship fleet, like we've seen in the other 2. And their advancements are kind of a mixed bag. There's some group hug stuff in here even. You get things like Bajoran Militia here. It's whenever you have ships in orbit of a system, each production node there adds an extra hit die in a space battle. It's basically they're providing you with munitions. Nothing to gain extra research at the beginning of each turn. I like the teachings of Kai. Kind of makes you friendly to people. Your peaceful rivals, when they win a space battle against one of the hostile rivals, the peaceful one gets to ready a command. Granted, that's not an official term in the game, but basically someone that you have a trade agreement with is peaceful, and people who don't are still hostile. And it's a very interesting one. It makes people tend to befriend you instead of making an enemy of you. And various other ones in here that do, they're all pretty thematic, and they have a mixed bag of things. A lot of them, surprisingly though, are for peaceful and basically to get people to leave you alone. Though there is the things like militia in there, which boost up your stats. The Bajorans aren't pushovers in a fight, but they do have their limitations. I think one of the changes that's being discussed for the faction is reducing their warp speed so that they can't use warp until a certain point. And I'm not sure how that's coming along, but that was kind of thematic, and I like the idea of it. Overall, though, the restriction that you're limited to building your star bases behind everyone else. Basically, at Ascendancy 1, everybody can build one star base. You can't. When you get to Ascendancy 2, then you can build your first star base. 3, you can build 2 star bases. So you're always behind in that respect, and you're always behind on commands because of that. So that's a big detriment for the faction already. In the end, though, they basically become a culture-generating machine. They generate massive amounts of culture, which you use to open up the orbs, and you get the bonuses each time you open an orb, which is kind of a cool addition to them and makes them very unique. At the same time, you lack in some areas where other factions have advantages. Your biggest fleet is a 6-ship fleet, so you have to keep that in mind. In space battles against a lot of opponents, you're going to be outnumbered. You really have better things to spend your research on than your weapons and shields. You really want to research those advancements to get them in play and start getting the bonuses from them. So that's going to cost you your shield and weapon upgrades, which makes you even at more of a disadvantage in space battles. So ideally, you want to become friendly and stay out of combat as much as possible. But if you have the right advancements researched and you play things correctly, you're not a pushover in battle either, and you can hold your own if you need to. That said, you don't want to completely forget about your shield and weapon upgrades, fall too far behind, because you will get stomped. Overall, though, I really do like the faction. I like the uniqueness of it, the fact that it plays much differently than many other factions out there, and can't wait to see the finalized version. Again, I'm kind of upset that I'm showing you a half-finished, possibly, version. I think most of it is going to stay the way it is. There might be a couple changes, so keep an eye. I will post the thread down below where they're talking about the faction, as well as the link to the models, and keep an eye on that thread, and if anything does change, I'm sure they'll post it there, and hopefully they'll have a more finalized version of the cards and things to come when that gets all ironed out. For the meantime, though, I'm enjoying playing them, and as always with these fan factions, if it looks like something you're interested in, check it out. Anyway, as always, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.